The story of Abraham and the story of the Jews is the story of one man who dared to be different, and his descendants, a people whose wandering was endless, whose persecution was unremitting, whose vision for a better world was unparalleled, whose belief in one God and their commitment to His Torah and the dream of returning to their homeland were unshakable. One man, and from him one people who dared to be different. Quote Thomas Cahill, The Gifts of the Jews.
Without the Jews, we would see the world through different eyes, hear with different ears, even feel with different feelings, and we would set a different course for our lives.
Quote J.M. Roberts, History of the World.
No other people has produced a greater historical impact from such comparatively insignificant origins and resources.
After the Nazis were defeated in 1945, in 1948, only 3 years later, the United Nations voted for the re-establishment of the Jewish homeland, the State of Israel. To date, after 2,500 years of dispersion to over 100 countries on 5 continents, the Jews are the only people throughout history to survive, retain their identity, and return not only once, but twice from exile to their ancient homeland. Over 2,500 years ago, there were approximately 10 million Jews in the world. Today, there are just under 14 million. In comparison, 2,000 years ago, there were approximately 30 million Chinese in the world. Today, there are over 1.4 billion. Throughout history, as if ordained, the Jews have remained small in number. And throughout these 2,500 years of exile, something equally astonishing happened. The Jews never let their dream of returning to their God-given ancient homeland. They never lost hope. They never stopped believing that one day their dispersion would end.
It is almost beyond our capacity to imagine how the world would have fared if they, the Jews, had never emerged. Certainly the world without the Jews would have been a radically different place. Humanity might have eventually stumbled upon all the Jewish insights, but we cannot be sure. To them we owe the idea of equality before the law, sanctity of life, dignity of the human person, social responsibility, peace as an idea, and many other items which constitute the basic furniture of the human mind. Without it, the world might have been a much emptier place.
The Hebrews, the Jews, have contributed more to civilized man than any other nation. They have given religion to 3/4 of the globe, and have influenced the affairs of mankind more and more happily than any other nation, ancient or modern. The laws of Moses contributed suggestions and impulses to the men and institutions, which were to prepare the modern world, and if we could have but the eyes to see, we should readily discover how much besides religion we owe to the Jews.
Of all the extreme fanaticism which plays havoc in man's nature, there is not one as irrational as anti-Semitism.
There is no greater example of this than the evil of one man, who projected his own failings and those of his followers on the Jews, and that was Adolf Hitler.
Providence has ordained that I should be the greatest liberator of humanity. I am freeing man from a false vision called conscience and morality. The Ten Commandments have lost their validity. Conscience is a Jewish invention. It is a blemish. The heaviest blow which struck humanity was Christianity. Bolshevism is Christianity's illegitimate child. Both are the inventions of the Jew. The struggle for world domination is between me and the Jews. All else is meaningless.
To understand the Jews, one has to understand history and the remarkable role they have played in it. However, to understand how they have survived, despite all odds, one has to look past history, into the world beyond the natural, into the realm of the divine. Here is what Sir Thomas Newton, Bishop of Bristol, said about the Jews in the 18th century.
The preservation of the Jews is really one of the most single and illustrious acts of divine providence. What but a supernatural power could have preserved them in such a manner, as no other nation has been preserved, and no less remarkable is the destruction of their enemies. Let it serve as a warning to all those who, at any time or occasion, are raising a clamor or persecution against them.
I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you.
If history and the story of the Jews has proven anything, it is that God has kept his covenant, his promise to the Jewish people. For over 2,500 years, Jews suffered persecution. They were tortured and massacred, their synagogues burnt, their women violated, their books vandalized and set ablaze, century after century after century. Throughout their history, and even until modern times, for reasons of jealousy, of people blaming their ills on a convenient scapegoat, and because Jews stood up and continue to stand up for the absolute moral standard that comes from the belief in one God and the holiness of human purpose. The Jews have faced and continue to face the demonic and destructive forces of anti-Semitism. For over 2,500 years, since the first exile in 586 BCE, Jews were scattered across the globe like stubble in the wind.
God will then scatter you among the nations, from one end of the earth to the other.
For over 2,500 years, Jews were driven out of their homes in country after country after country. But, despite the persecutions and even the unimaginable destruction of the Holocaust, sustained by their unswerving faith and trust in God and His Torah, throughout those 2,500 years, something remarkable happened. The Jews not only survived, but flourished and changed the world. One remarkable fact is that since Alfred Nobel first created his prize, over 1/5 of all the Nobel Prizes have been awarded to Jews. Jews who comprise only less than 1/2 of 1% of the world's population, and yet have received over 20% of the Nobel Prizes for the greatest scientific, social, economic, creative, and intellectual contributions to the progress of mankind. But It is not only in their pursuit of human excellence that Jews have contributed more to the world relative to their numbers than any other people throughout history. It's their passion for meaning, purpose, morality in life, and their respect for human dignity that Jews have always been, for good and for bad, at the forefront of change. In 1978, before a Soviet court about to sentence him to 15 years in prison for the so-called crimes of studying Hebrew, practicing Judaism, and requesting a visa for Israel, Natan Sharansky said,
"For 2,000 years, the Jewish people, my people, have been dispersed all over the world, and still each year Jews have stubbornly and apparently without reason said to each other, Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. And today, when I am further than ever from my dream and from my people, and when many difficult years of prison camps lie ahead of me, I say to my wife and my people, Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem."
After 9 years of imprisonment, Natan Sharansky was freed, and in 1986 he immigrated to Israel. And the communist regime that suppressed and incarcerated him collapsed and no longer exists. Here is a quote by Leon Tolstoy, the Russian writer, written in 1908.
What is the Jew? What kind of unique creature is this, whom all the rulers of all the nations of the world have disgraced, crushed, expelled, destroyed, persecuted, burned, and drowned, and who, despite the anger and fury of their oppressors, continues to live and to flourish? The Jew is the symbol of eternity. He is the one who, following the faithfulness of his ancestors, has for so long had guarded the prophetic message and transmitted it to all mankind. A people such as this can never disappear.
Writing about the Jews in 1899, Mark Twain observed that
the Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now or have vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?